So Age of Calamity takes place canonically before Breath of the Wild, but it was released 3 years later. I was really looking forward to this game as I thought we'd finally get to see some of Breath of the Wild's Hyrule pre-Calamity. I thought that it would explore Link's relationship with the other champions and Zelda. There are hints of how they got along in some of the memories you can discover in Breath of the Wild, but they really don't do much other than paint a very broad picture for us. As well, a lot of the memories you discover show how Zelda goes from not wanting Link as a personal guard to despising him, being grateful to him, and at the end, maybe even falling a little in love with him. It seemed like a cute story, and I thought we'd get to see more of how it unfolds in more detail in Age of Calamity. I was also hoping it would show us how Link went from being a knight to a royal guard and then a champion. Lastly, I was really looking forward to being able to pilot the divine beasts as the other champions, and a warrior-style game seemed like a perfect type of game to experience a massive and epic battle leading up to the inevitable failure of the heroes to stop Ganon and set up the events of Breath of the Wild. In this game, you play as a variety of characters from The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, as well as a couple of new characters that are introduced in this game. The story takes place in an alternate universe where a time-traveling mini-guardian alters the events leading up to Breath of the Wild's story, and prevents the Great Calamity from ever occurring. Take command of the heroes and battle through hordes of enemies. Along the way, you'll recruit new allies and unlock weapon combos to help you crush your foes. Each character has a unique weapon, attack combos, and special abilities that can be used to take down large groups of enemies or boss monsters. Battle across familiar and new landscapes as you clear out enemy fortresses while ensuring that your own bases don't get overthrown. Your goal is to prevent the Great Calamity from happening and ensure Hyrule's peace and prosperity. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of good things to say about the story. The opening scene of the game is the mini-guardian Terrako escaping from Calamity Ganon's attack on Hyrule Castle. It somehow can open a portal and jump back through time. It's never explained why this little robot can time travel, but apparently Zelda made it as a child. The whole story suffers because pretty much none of it matters once the creators of the game decided to go full alternate universe, as it completely removes the context for caring about what happens. The biggest draw of this game was that it would tell you the story of what really happened 100 years before Breath of the Wild, and that you as the player would get to experience the Great Calamity firsthand. By placing the story in an alternate universe, it makes the story not matter in the context of the world set up by Breath of the Wild. None of your actions matter because none of them would explain why things are the way they are in the next canonical entry of the series. Obviously, the thing that I would change about the story is to make it happen in the same universe and timeline as Breath of the Wild. I think that most of the game should revolve around the core memories that Link discovers in Breath of the Wild, so that we can have more context as to what is going on both before and after those little flashbacks. I would have also liked to see Link grow and get closer with the other champions over the course of the game. With the exception of Rivali, all the champions as spirits treat Link as a friend, and it would have been nice to see them fighting alongside each other and gaining each other's trust over the course of the prequel game. And most importantly, there should have been more emphasis on how Link went from being a complete stranger to Zelda to being someone she was willing to sacrifice her life for. Instead, we got the story that was mostly centered around how much Zelda loves the little time-traveling robot. I did like two of the villains that they introduced, Aster and Suga. I thought that they had great designs, but were pretty much wasted in this game, as neither one really achieves anything or has any personal stakes against our heroes other than, good guys are in the way of the bad guys' plan. Beyond that, I really didn't think any of the characters were good. They were just kind of there to let you know that you were playing a Legend of Zelda game. Straight up, Link is not the protagonist of this game. It's the little guardian robot thing that time travels. The weirdest part too is that the game starts out making you think that Link is the main character, but then like halfway through you start to realize that it's the little robot that everyone cares about and is the key to preventing the calamity from taking place. The other characters like Impa, Zelda, and the other champions were fine, but they never really had moments of character growth. Furthermore, instead of using this game to introduce new characters that would breathe a little life into the world, they just time warp 4 of the characters that you meet in Breath of the Wild into the game. The part that I think gets me the most is that they hint at some other characters on the side missions like Link's mentor, an unnamed woman who taught Link how to fight. This would have been the perfect game to introduce someone like that and let you play as them, but alas. The combo system works fine, even if it's a little repetitive. The ability to swap between champions means even if you start to get a little bored, you can still swap and change the pace a little bit. The base character roster is a decent size, so you can have different teams on each mission. I like that you can spend money to train any character that is under-leveled, that way if you find yourself favoring only a couple of heroes, you don't need to grind levels with the other characters to have them caught up. You can also cast 3 different spells by picking up magical essence dropped by certain enemies. The fire spell can ignite grass and explode bomb barrels, the ice and lightning spell can be cast into water to increase the effect. Every character also gains access to the 4 Sheikah tablet abilities: Bomb, Cryonis, Stasis, and Magnesis, which are most commonly used to counter certain attacks from mini and main boss monsters. All characters also have a unique way of casting the Sheikah Slate abilities, and I really like that, as it makes it more rewarding to play as the other characters. It also helps each one feel more unique and breaks up some of the monotony of always using the same attack combos over and over. I like that you can collect weapons for each character and upgrade them at the forge. It helps build a sense of progression and achievement to find weapons you like and level it up. I like that there's also certain bonuses on each weapon, and forging them together gets you a weapon with both bonuses. Certain bonuses also potentiate each other if they're the same shape. It helps the player build a weapon that caters to their playstyle and lets you have different weapons with bonuses geared towards killing mobs, bosses, or farming materials. Link and Zelda are the only characters that can equip different weapon types that change their basic attack combos and special moves, and I really wish that the rest of the playable characters could do this as well. I would much rather have a smaller character roster that had more in-depth combat than having a larger cast that has more or less the same attack combos. Also, every character has at least 3 unique ways of casting the Sheikah abilities, but all of them share the same magic attack. Would have been nice to at least give them a little bit of variety in regards to that as well. Lastly, piloting the Divine Beasts was the least fun part of the game. They're cool for like the first 2 minutes you play as them, and then they get really boring really fast. The gameplay is super simple. There's hundreds of weak enemies in front of you and you just need to mow down as many as you can. Occasionally there's a harder enemy that you need to use a specific skill for, usually a Sheikah ability to exploit its weakness and deal extra damage. I like the layout for a lot of the levels. There were only a couple stages that felt like I had to do a lot of running back and forth across large portions, which really killed the momentum of a Warriors style game. More enemy variety and having the weak spot finishers not have such a long animation or only play occasionally would have been nice. When you have to do the same weak spot finisher on the same enemy over and over, it really drags things out and becomes frustrating, especially on harder difficulties when you're forced to play as a character that you haven't farmed a strong weapon for. Some animations are really long, and when you're having to do them over and over to take down really tanky bosses, it just makes everything slow and boring. Also, there was a huge disconnect on how attacks look versus how they affect your enemies. For example, Daruk is swinging around a giant stone club that should feel weighty and powerful when you're bashing down hordes of enemies. The lack of immersion made it really hard to want to play certain characters. Furthermore, some characters had really fun special mechanics like Urbosa and the King, while others felt really lame like Mipha and Daruk. Full disclosure, I prefer the main theme of this game over Breath of the Wild. If you're the kind of person that likes to listen to video game soundtracks while you study or whatever, seriously check out this soundtrack. The game looks great. I love that they didn't change anything from the art style of Breath of the Wild. I really like that they changed the scale of some of the monsters like the Hinox and the Stone Talus bosses. It made them feel like a bigger threat and were therefore more satisfying to take down. Honestly, this is the only thing that I wouldn't change. It looked great and sounded better. The voice acting was a little cringy at times, but I blame that more on the script, which is a story thing, more than the delivery and production quality. If you're a diehard Zelda fan, chances are you've already bought and played this game. If you haven't bought it yet and are thinking about picking it up in preparation for Tears of the Kingdom, I would say don't bother. You're honestly better off watching a Let's Play or even just a compilation of the cutscenes.